Daddy eats lots. Daddy eats lots. Daddy eats lots. Munch, munch, munch.
Hello and welcome to Daddy Eats Last, where we discuss the challenges of being a man in modern society and whatever the hell that even means. I'm Kane, and joining me today is Matthew. How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. How are you? It's been a long time between drinks.
I'm doing well. How's your marathon training going? We haven't checked in for a little while. Have you pulled a hammy? Have you pulled a heart muscle? How's everything going?
No big injuries like that. There's a bit of a hip flexor keeps flaring up. And I'm trying to stay on top of that. But no, training, school holidays came around. So up until that point, it was going great. But I've got every intention of doing a 25K tomorrow to get back on track. So I think it's 10 weeks to go till the big day. So it's still a bit of time to pump a few out.
Very nice, very nice. We'll get on to school holidays in a little while. But before that, you sent me some messages, was it about a month ago? With pictures of your car accident.
Yes, yeah.
What happened?
Mate, it was crazy. So we were down at Mum and Dad's down in Victoria. So we drove down there for 3 or 4 days from Brizzy to get some stuff done to the new Prado. But anyway, they live on a 24-acre block. So growing up as kids, we just drove around in paddock bombs on the weekends and motorbikes and all that kind of cool stuff. That's how I learned to drive a manual car. And traditionally, when we do go down and visit Mum and Dad, the kids want to jump on the motorbikes, drive the tractors, all the kind of stuff they can't really do or get a chance to do up here in Brizzy. So we arrived on the Sunday afternoon, and the plan was Kim was going to work at my sister's in town for Monday to Wednesday, and I'd just hang out at Mum and Dad's with the kids. And she did say to me on the drive down there, whatever you do, don't do anything stupid, and don't let them out of your sight. I'm like, yeah, no worries, that's fine. So Monday morning after morning tea, we jump in one of the paddock bombs and go for a little bit of quiet spin around the block. And so Dad's driving, and even Sammy was just sitting on Dad's lap and just putting around, just holding the steering wheel, getting a feel for the car. And we get to a point where Mia's like, oh, I'd like to have a bit of a drive. And we're like, oh, okay. So and I was probably the same age when I was, learning to drive as well. So she's jumped in the front seat. Dad's moved across to the passenger seat with Sam. Thankfully, we all had seatbelts on. I was in the back left, Eloise back right. And Dad was explaining to her the clutch, the brake, the gears, the accelerator, all those kind of things. And we were just gently trying to take off in first. It kept on stalling. It's her first time. When she managed to sort of take off, she's planted her foot on the accelerator. And then I think fear has just taken over her. So no matter, I think Dad was yelling at her, take your foot off the accelerator or brake. But, a 9-year-old in this kind of new situation, just anything went out the window. Anyway, we've probably gone about 30, 40 metres and slammed straight into a tree. And from there, it gets a bit wild. So when the car came to a stop, which was, straight away pretty much, Mia was starting to scream. Eloise was screaming. And I sort of saw a bit of what I thought was, it looked like smoke coming out of the front of the car, which was turns out just the radiator and the steam. But you automatically think the worst. I'm thinking, fire's going to break out here. So Mia's jumped out. Eloise has jumped out because thankfully they were both okay, screaming and running away. And Mia had thought that my father had, I guess, passed away or was in a horrific state because he was knocked out and he was just sort of hunched over in the front there.
And he had Sam on his lap.
Yes, yeah. So Sam was conscious, thankfully, and then a fair bit of blood was coming out of my dad's head. So I've got out of the back and run to the front, grabbed Sam out, and there was blood everywhere in Sam's mouth, and I sort of thought the worst, like his teeth had sort of caved in or something like that. So I've checked his teeth, and it turns out he sliced his tongue. He's bitten down on his tongue quite severely, like it was quite a large gash towards the back. So I placed him back on the ground, knowing that it was his tongue, and I had to drag Dad out because he just wasn't with it, and laid him on the ground. And then Mum's come up from the house, and I'm screaming at her to, I think you better call an ambulance. So she's done that. Anyway, taken Dad down to the house, taken everybody down to the house, tried to clean him up, and then it was just.
So at this stage, is your dad conscious?
He did regain consciousness, yes, yeah. But it was just so scary because seeing him in the front, just looking at me or with his head tilted towards me, you know, I knew he was alive, but to whatever the injury extent, I wasn't too sure at that point in time. Anyway, so I've gotten everyone down to the house, and coming from that, Dad has just sort of, I guess the shock has just come repeating the same thing over and over again, which is freaking me out even more. At this stage, we've called the ambulances, and 3 end up arriving. And then Dad sort of got better and better. So he went and had a shower to clean himself up, because the amount of blood coming out of his head was quite a lot. And then at this stage, once I knew the ambulance was on their way, I had to make the phone call to Kim to tell her what was happening. And that was probably the most, you know, scary part, to be honest. Ringing her and saying, "Shit, you've left me for, I think, all of 4 hours, and your kids are in a distraught." Then the ambulances did arrive, and they assessed everybody. They've taken Mia, because she was of the age she was at, and she was in the front, and the airbag sort of has gone off, and a bit of plastic from the airbag must have gushed under the eye. For that reason, they've taken her to the Children's in Monash, and they took Sam to the Children's in Monash as well. And then my father went to another, I think, a hospital in Dandenong. He went there. So we spent the next, 5-6 hours in the Children's at Monash. They did release Mia that night, which was good. And Sam stayed overnight with Kim, and also my dad in Dandenong. He stayed over too. So, yeah. And then they've come home the next day, and for all of the 3 days we were going to be there, 2 of them were spent, in and out of hospital. So it wasn't a very pleasant experience, but I think it was just more of I don't know, I guess a wake up call that you just how careful you have to be, and things that you thought you did when you were a kid don't necessarily translate as easy to other kids, I guess, or you just need to, I don't know, be a bit more cautious around these kind of things.
Yeah, I've got lots of questions, but I guess one of the obvious ones is, how was Mia afterwards? Because did she feel like, she's only 9, she doesn't understand like this sort of stuff happens. Did she feel responsible? Did she feel? How did she feel?
Absolutely, she felt so responsible. It was when we were sitting down at the house and the wait for the ambulance. This is the 30 so minutes was just Mia was just in tears. I want Mum. This is my fault. This is my fault. This is my fault. And we. No matter how many times we said to her, "No, darling, this is not your fault. This is my fault for putting you in this situation." I guess as a 9-year-old, you don't go, "Oh, okay, Dad, yeah, that's right." You just keep on thinking, you've just been through a traumatic experience, so she wouldn't see it any other way. And then even in the car ride back from the hospital that night, like she was fine, like after the ambulance ride and everything. So I went in the ambulance with her, but then the car ride home was just tears flowing all the way for 45 minutes from Clayton to Garfield North, where we live, Mum and Dad live. And again, it was just, this is my fault, this is my fault. Eloise was fine, but yeah, Mia. But I think after that, the next day, we all slept in the same bed, Eloise, Mia and I, that night. And the next morning, she was a lot better. I don't think she's going to drive anytime soon, so she says. But yeah, she was not in a good way.
She might wait till she's 16.
I think she might, yeah.
What about you, mate? Like, you obviously, how did you feel? Like, it would have been, I'd imagine that would have been awful. Like, you've inadvertently, because, like you said, you did this sort of thing when you were a kid. You've inadvertently, put your family in that situation. Like, you would have been pretty down as well.
I was, mate, yeah. Like, it was funny the range of emotions you go through. Like, once we hit that tree and then I sort of gauged everybody was okay, like, it just straight away a bit of anger kicked in and saying, how fucking stupid to do this. It should be one-on-one in a car, not 4 people in a car with a 9-year-old learning to drive. And the fact that didn't even cross my mind, and I put her in this situation, that's where a bit of anger kicked in. And then after that, we got back down to the house. It was more just, I don't know. It was just making sure they're okay. And yeah, so the anger disappeared, and then it was more, Jesus, what have I done here? And just, consoling Mia. And then I guess, yeah, like you should know better. These kind of things, I guess. But a bit down. Later, when I was reflecting later that night, it was more like, yeah, come on, you can't do these kind of things. And if we ever get back there again, let's be a bit more careful, I guess, next time.
Yeah, having seen the photos that you sent through, like as far as I can see, you guys were incredibly lucky hitting a tree at whatever kilometers per hour. Like the car was in a pretty bad way. So yeah, really lucky that everyone's kind of walked away from it, effectively just like a night in hospital for observation.
Pretty much, yeah. So I've been speaking to Dad, and he's a little bit sore still. He's 67, so it's probably going to take a little bit of time for him to get better. But the police were saying when they turned up, for the airbags to deploy in a car, they have to be going at least 30 kilometres an hour. So it would have been maybe 30, 40 k's per hour, which is quite fast. The hit is straight on, but yeah, thankfully the airbags did deploy, because it would have been a lot worse if they hadn't, I'll tell you.
Yeah, and the conversation with Kim, and then Kim, I guess later on after everything was okay, I'd imagine the very first thing is everyone's okay. Is that how that conversation went? How did she take it?
I was so surprised. I was waiting all weekend, and we had a 3-day drive home from Brisbane to Melbourne, and I was expecting to cop the biggest earful. But I think you're right. I think given the fact that she knows that I know how stupid it was, and the fact that everybody was okay, she was most grateful about that. I did, of course, cop a little bit of a tiny spray that you should have known better. These kids trust you, and now you lost probably a bit of trust, which is I probably have. But yeah, I was glad that she was a bit, reasonable about it and didn't tear me a new one.
Yeah, well, you do a lot. You're right. You do a lot for the kids. You're with them a lot compared to, I guess, most dads. So, like, while you have, maybe lost a little bit of that trust, you've also built up probably a larger bank of trust than a lot of fathers have done previously. So, and everyone makes sort of, I say it's a mistake. Like it's accident. No one can foresee that happening. No one sees that sort of thing happening. It's the same. You jump off, a fence, and we play indoor soccer. You don't think you're going to strain your ankle. Like, no one can foresee that sort of thing happening. So,
no, that's exactly right. I mean, no one's to blame here. I guess if there is blame, it's probably on the older people that are in the car, the adults who are not realising the situation. But again, you just don't expect that kind of thing to sort of happen. That's the last thing you think of when you're giving a kid a lesson. Well, that's the last thing we thought was going to happen, but unfortunately, it just did.
I guess my last question is, who drives stick in 2022 anyway? Who drives a manual?
I was discussing this with Kim the other day, actually. Yeah, nobody does. And even there's probably no point for these kids to ever learn manual, because by the time they actually go and drive a car in 10, 15 years' time, I'm tipping no one has.
Yeah.
And
it'll probably be self-driving by then. They'll probably just get in and push a button, and they'll end up at wherever they want to go.
Exactly. And we were told as kids, you should learn a manual just in case you're in a situation where you need to drive someone home or drive a manual home. And that never happened, not once. So I'm pretty confident that, the manual driving days are done and dusted for these kids.
Well, if there's any positive out of it, like Mia's got a little taste of driving a manual car. She could become the first, female F1 champion in 15, 20 years' time.
Not the way she drives, mate.
So we'll move on to school holidays. How have your school holidays been on the back of that?
Yeah, not too bad. So pretty hectic actually. So we did the trip down to Melbourne. We were home for a couple of days, and straight after that we went out to Western Queensland, a place called Roma. They have a big Easter festival there. We did the same thing last year, and that was Thursday afternoon till Easter Monday. So coming back Easter Monday, it was like, we are so glad to be home, but we had to go back to school on Tuesday, because I think our school holidays started a week earlier than you guys. Yeah. So this week it's just been washing and getting the house back in order, and crazy. But it was a good, albeit what happened in Melbourne, it was great to get down there, see mum and dad. And I always like taking the kids down there because they get to see, there's an apple orchard close by. They get to see kangaroos and deer and all that kind of stuff. And it's a nice little break from being up here. Yeah. Are you still in school holidays?
Yeah. So we finish. We Anzac Day tomorrow, and then the little fella's back for term 2 on Tuesday. He's already starting the. I didn't really like school last term. Do I have to go? I'm going, mate. Towards the end of term, you loved it, so you just you have to suck these things up. You can't not go. Like, it's illegal. So we're all. So it's on Tuesday. We went away to the beach for a little bit, and then for 3 nights we went to a farm stay up in a place called Amphitheatre, which is sort of around Avoca, 2.5 hours sort of northwest of Melbourne. Spent sort of 3 nights up there. It's great. Being woken up by roosters at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's lambing season, so the little fella got to feed these 3 lambs. He got to feed them 2 or 3 bottles a day. So pigs, cows, went on a ute ride, all that sort of stuff. So it was fantastic, and it was a really, really enjoyable sort of family holiday, and probably the first one almost the first family holiday we've done outside of going to like a particular beach house we can access. So it actually felt like the first one, especially with COVID over the last 2 years, not being able to really do much or go many places for a lot of that time. It was nice to get away and have, I guess, what was a bit more of a family holiday.
Yeah, right. How did that come about? Because I do know traditionally you go away to.
My wife around January, she's like, in the last school holiday, she's like, I think we should do a farm stay. I've gone, that's a great idea. And then we get back from that holiday. She goes, oh, what about that farm stay? I've gone, I thought you've already booked that. We've talked about it 3 times. Just book the thing. So she booked it for the second half of the school holidays, understanding that the little fella might have been sick in the first week of the holidays. Turns out she was sick, or we might have had the Rona by then, which touchwood we haven't had yet, but I'm sure it's coming to us this term. So we booked it for the second week of the holidays midweek. So we we arrived there on Wednesday and came back on Saturday afternoon, late morning. So no, it was awesome.
And I know you can feed the lambs and things, but how immersed can you get in the actual farm itself? Like, is it are you waking up with the roosters as you said, but are you going to bed like late at night? Is it like jobs all day long, where you get a relax time as well, or how do they?
Yeah, it's a lot of relaxing. So you get to feed the animals. So in the morning you'll go around. It probably takes about 45 minutes to feed just the animals, which are kind of more. I say that they're not show animals as such, but they're not. This farm was predominantly sheep and predominantly cows, so cattle. So it had nothing to do with the cattle. It didn't really have anything to do with the day-to-day sort of sheep stuff. But there was, pigs. There was the 3 lambs, which had been orphaned by the flock. So that's actually practically caring. So each of those lambs will grow up to be, I think they're all female, so they'll all grow up to be used and be bred off down the track. So you're contributing in a small way, but it's not much in the grand scheme of the farm. But you got to explore the farm and sort of walk around, which was great.
Awesome. And what about, do they cook you a big farm dinner and breakfast and things like that, or is it you carry your own things? Or
you bring your own things, and you got provisions. So then literally the farmers live next door. So there's a husband and wife who used to run the farm actually. So they've retired and sold it to their kids. So their kids actually run the operational aspect of the farm. They run the sort of, I say it's like a B&B sort of thing. It's they give you bacon, which may be from the pigs, I'm not sure. You actually go and collect eggs in the morning. So the little fella would be like, he'd go in and go, oh, there's an egg. And the farmer would be like, oh, that's yours. Go pop it in your pile sort of thing. So you'd have, eggs which were sort of less than a day old. And then, at night, we just cooked dinner at our normal time. And then little fella and the wife would pile into bed at sort of 7 o'clock because, he wasn't too keen on sleeping in a random bed sort of by himself. I slept sort of the first night I slept in there. The other 2 nights she slept in there. So she was in bed by sort of 7. We were all in bed by sort of 9 and getting woken up at, I think the first rooster went off at 4:30 most days, and I'd hear that one, and then they'd kind of ongoing roostering until we'd all get up at sort of 6:30. I'd say is probably the limit when any of us got up.
So was it a bit of a digital detox as well? Like you took the opportunity to sort of not be woken up by a proper alarm. You got a rooster waking you up, and
pretty much. I had to do a bit of work while I was up there. So there's a Wi-Fi signal inside the the unit, which we're in, the cottage we were in. But as soon as you sort of went within 10 meters, there was no phone reception. So no phone call, no work phone calls, or anything like that. So and we went up to Avoca one day, and then there's like 5 voicemails. I go, no, I'll deal with them on Monday. Or Tuesday. I can't do anything about them now. So that was nice, where it wasn't constantly kind of looking at your phone.
That's a great idea, mate. Farm stay, awesome.
Yeah, no, I'd highly recommend it. And this was sort of, like I say, if you're in Melbourne, it's only 2.5 hours northwest of the CBD through Ballarat towards Avoca, just 15 minutes south of Avoca. So no, we really enjoyed it. And the little fella's already asking, again, oh, when can we go back? I go, mate, your lambs won't be there. Lambs were like his best friends. Like every morning he'd feed them. He goes, these are my lammy friends. He'd go out and see them first thing in the morning, like put his, jacket on at 6 and go and check on them. And he'd say good night to them when he'd come in at 5. So no, it was a really good experience.
Oh, you're going to love that. That's great. Was there any Sovereign Hill involved in Ballarat, mate, on the way home?
We thought about it. I think on the way home, we were like, oh, we don't want to, if you spend half a day or a full day at Sovereign Hill and then we have to drive another 2.5 hours in the back of that, and might kind of just, we all might be a bit jack of it by the time we got home. It turned out we were jack of each other by the time we got home after 2.5 hours in the car anyway. But yeah, add Sovereign Hill to the mix, which we will do at some point, but not this time around. It would have just, would have sent us over the edge.
Save that for the next one.
Yeah, mate. I think you have to go. You've got, is it Kim's parents coming over?
We do, yeah. So they babysat the kids all this morning while Kim and I went to the shop and did a bit of work. So we said, look, come back over at 5 for a bit of pizza and we'll, repay the favour.
Giddy up. That sounds awesome. We had pizza for lunch. Cannot beat a pizza. Do remember to subscribe to Dad Eats Last on iTunes if you haven't done already. And while you're there, please leave a review. Also, tell your mates about the podcast, especially if they are guys. Most of all, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with another slice. Pizza joke of Daddy Eats Last. How's that for a dad joke? Catch you next week.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.